college football and the restart of college football and, how that's going to work. I see a lot of hypocrisy out there. I see a lot of hot takes for people or from people because I understand everybody wants college sports to happen. They want sports to happen because when sports happens, you feel a little bit of yourself back to normal, especially in an unnormal time that we're in right now. But with all that's going on, pandemic wise, it's not like the pandemic's just up and moved away just to allow us to play football in the fall, because baseball is not America's pastime right now. It is, and for the foreseeable future will be, American football. That is college or NFL. And if both of those are taken away, right now the major one is college sports and college football. And if that's taken away, it looks like there might be more F-150 trucks rolling up to the Capitol in every state to make sure that we can have college football. Did I just generalize with the F-150s? Yes, I did. Because F-150 Twitter is going crazy.
Just a little bit.
Not like I don't want football. I love football. It's just there needs to be things to happen, and there's been some news to drop from Big 12, from the ACC and the Big 10, as well as the Pac-12, basically a players coalition coming together to list some demands. Sterling, what have you been thinking? What have you been feeling? Because this is hot about everything that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the first part, right, I remember Sean Doolittle of the Washington Nationals, a closer for the Nationals, before baseball started up, he said, sports are a reward of a functioning society. Right. And we haven't done a great job at the functioning part because of COVID. So I think let's just start there. Right.
Yeah.
Where we're in this position where we're going back and forth on whether we should play college football, because we've done a pretty terrible job up to this point of curtailing what this pandemic is.
Very terrible.
Okay. So that's the baseline of where we have to begin. The next part about it is, there's true health and safety concerns. And I know there's a lot of the Clay Travises out there that people should just play. If they get it, they're going to be fine, which I'm not a doctor. It seems like there's definitely evidence of that. There's also evidence that because we don't know what this is, right? It's a novel virus that, there may be some lingering and long-term effects to this, especially for athletes. And a lot of athletes actually have enlarged hearts. So if you do, and then you get corona, it could obviously affect your heart and affect you down the road, yada, yada, yada. So what schools don't want is the liability, right? Look, I mean, we can be honest about it. Let's just be very real about college sports.
They were having kids sign waivers,
right?
Low-key waivers.
They're trying to have kids sign waivers under the table. I don't say on the table, but under the table, right? To waive their rights so that they do not get sued. Universities only care about the financial side, right?
Right.
Let's be real. They don't really care about the health and well-being of most of the kids, right? It's about the value that they bring to the university. So that's the first part. I actually said this earlier in a couple group chats. I was like, it's ridiculous that they're trying to have these kids sign waivers. So we could actually back up there. You actually sign a waiver when you sign your tender, right? When you sign your 1-year scholarship every year, you sign tons of documents. One of them
you sign your right for your likeness, you sign that away to the university. That's really the biggest one. But yeah, just to
and also your health, right? That anything injury wise, essentially that a lot of the costs will be covered by the university, but you can't sue if you get seriously injured or something, right?
Right.
So now they're trying to amend that so that it can cover COVID, which is super tricky, right? Because we don't know what this is. We don't know what it's going to do long term if you do get it. And having people sign away their rights, I think, is ridiculous, just so you can obviously have a football season. So the next part is whether or not players should have that representation, right, to be able to have a seat at the table. And this is what Trevor Lawrence – let's back up. This is what the Pac-12 kids started about a week ago.
Right.
They had a real list of demands, right?
Their list of demands were hot, and they came together. I believe it was the track athlete from UCLA.
It was UCLA. Started at UCLA, yeah.
UCLA, yeah. That got everybody together. Which is, first off, shout out to him. put everybody together like that, and then you come up with this list.
I mean, I thought they did such a great job of like making it represent all the sports, which I think is super cool, but also like all the concerns. So the first one was like health and safety protections. So allow option not to play during the pandemic without losing eligibility or spot on the team roster. Prohibit and void COVID-19 agreements that waive liability. That's a big one right there. Player-approved health and safety standards. The next one is where we get super tricky because Pac-12 kids were like, okay, if you guys are going to ask us this, we're going to ask for some money, which is the bigger aspect of this is like, not how do we figure out what happens money-wise moving forward, right?
Right.
Do we finally get to a position where we like have to pay players because of this, right? So Larry Scott, who is the Pac-12 commissioner, they said Larry Scott, administrators and coaches to voluntarily and drastically reduce excessive pay, end performance and academic bonuses. Whew, that's a big one. In lavish facility expenditures and use some endowment funds to preserve all sports. I love this one because they use Stanford as an example, that Stanford should reinstate all sports that were discontinued by tapping into their $27 billion endowment, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens is these schools act like they don't have enough money. But what happens is I'm going to use Alabama, not to like come at Alabama. I'm just going to use them because it's easy. They had like a $20 million surplus. So on the surface, they're like, oh, we have all this extra money. Well, they're like, well, let's go build another gym. Let's go add on to our weight room. Of course,
let's build on to the outside of Bryant-Denny and make it look futuristic. For no reason. We just finished doing an upgrade. Let's do another upgrade. Let's do another reno.
And that's awesome, right? People are like, oh, well, that helps us in recruiting. Like, no, it doesn't, right?
You're looking up on Saturday and seeing Derrick Henry run for 99-yard touchdown runs. That helps you for recruiting.
Right. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to show at the end of the year, like that their books are really close to zero, or a balanced book, right? Because what they don't want to do is be in a position where like they have all this money and instead of paying it to the players, they're just like holding it, right? So then what happens? The strength and conditioning coach gets an extra $500,000. Steve Sarkisian, in the middle of a pandemic, right, got an incremental $300,000 to his contract and then bonuses on top of that, right?
To be a coach that doesn't talk to players during the season.
Right. And all of that, right, just to show and just to get away with like, oh, hey, we actually don't have any money. Well, now we're in this position where we're in a global pandemic, and that spending has been going on for a long time, right? College football, college basketball, we understand that it pays for the other sports, but the money that they've made has been wiped away because of these lavish expenditures that these schools do, all in an effort just so they don't have to pay kids, right? So that's the bottom line, right? That's why they do it. Okay.
And they've been getting away with it for years, and now you see the ineptitude from the NCAA standpoint, and then obviously from every other college about, like you just said and broke down very, 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 very beautifully. Great job on that. Great breakdown. Let me give you a hand clap on that one. You see how and where they throw their money around, and so now the Pac-12 comes out with that, and what I would anticipate is we ain't having no football. There ain't no fall sports. There is no fall sports to come.
Yeah, they read that memo. They were like, "Oh, we shut it down.
Shut it down. Hit the button. Take it away. So now let's transition over to the ACC and the Big Ten, and their list of demands obviously are a lot less. Basically, I can wrap it up in a nutshell. What they're looking for, and it was the two biggest players, obviously in college football right now. One being Justin Fields, the other being Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback for Clemson. And so the list of demands are, they want to play football this season, establish universal mandated health and safety procedures and protocols to protect college athletes in these conferences, the Big Four, Big Five conferences, Power Five, guarantee eligibility whether the player chooses to play or opts out, and then use their voices to establish open communication, trust between players and officials, and then a representative of the players of all Power Five conferences. So they want to essentially, and then ultimately create a college football players association. That was the biggest one. And so by making a CFB PA, then you're taking so much power away from the NCAA, who has never truly been challenged in their governing rights of student athletes across the country. So that is the biggest caveat, because like I said before, you had everybody riled up on Twitter saying, look at all these student athletes. First off, I know I'm going to reiterate a lot of points that some great reporters and personalities have said of, now this is the time that you want to listen to athletes. Like, you weren't listening to athletes before when they were saying be paid. I want to be paid. Listen to the reason why we need to have compensation. But now we can listen to all these athletes. Let's take their word. Listen to them. Look at them. They want to play. Get behind them. Let's do whatever we can to give them what they want, guys. Let's really do it. That's the sentiments out here. And hey, it's annoying. And then I did see another tweet, like, because you said Clay Travis. I was just gonna, and I think he put up a tweet like, because the Big Ten commissioner was going to cancel the Big Ten season, but he was like, I have his son plays in Mississippi State, and he was like, if he travels to go see his son, oh my God, I can't believe what the reaction will be if people find that one out. And I was like, first off, those have nothing to do with one another.
Right.
Like, one of them, that is his job, and he is being a leader in his job and doing what the SEC should be doing. And the other is him being a parent and a father of a kid saying, there's nothing I can do for you in your league. I wish I could, but I will be there to support you because there's nothing that you can do.
Right.
If I was here, I would do something, but there's nothing that you can do. Am I going to pull you out? You're a grown kid. I recommend that you don't play, but you're a grown kid.
Let me ask you that you out of us, you were the one that played a revenue sport. Would you play this year? And it's a weird question. I know you're older now, so you have a different mindset of like all this, but like, would you know what I mean? Because you were like a fringe guy that needed tape to be able to have a chance at the next level, right? So like for you, it would be big for you to play.
I mean, if you put apples to apples, like if I can hold my scholarship, no, I'm not gonna. I really don't think I would talk with my teammates, and I would get the vibe in the room of what everybody kind of wanted to do. You also want to make a team decision. You don't want to, obviously you don't want to be like the guy that looks selfish out here or something like that. Right. But then you put it all together. You put it all together and you're like, first off, we've never been here. This is uncharted territory with something that could give you lasting health complications the rest of your life. So if I'm trying to go to the league, A, is my scholarship going to be granted, and am I still going to have the same eligibility for next year? If that's a yes, that's a major point. So then I can just go to school, possibly graduate, and then if I did want to transfer, I could transfer somewhere else, or I can start my master's program. So I can look at it that way. And then I'm like, all right, well, it's another year of getting, bigger, faster, stronger. And then I still have the opportunity to do what I could do this year, next year, and have no problem. Yeah. So that's the way I would look at it. And then I would probably honestly decide to opt out because you just don't know. I think it would have been if I would have saw that, talking with parents, but then seeing I don't know if you saw the article about the Clemson player who's getting a medical red shirt this year because he got COVID and then he got strep throat. I don't know the timeline of which one came. I believe it was COVID first and then strep throat after, but he still can't breathe. And he's a future NFL player, I believe. Yeah. And brothers having trouble to breathe. So I think that's sad. One, Dabo understands what this virus can do to an athlete if it hits the right way, and you still risk it. That's just me personally, because you have a player in your team that goes through that. So I think it's going to go by case basis, but probably wouldn't play.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think there's so much to it. I think to your point, if you're a senior, it'd be hard. Yeah, if you could come back the next year, then right. I mean, it's a tough situation, man. It's just we're putting these kids in a really difficult decision they have to make. To your point, on one side, you're committed to your teammates and to your friends.
Right.
On the other, you're committed to like this timeline of like where you thought you would be or what you were trying to do in your life. And that's tough. I think that it's just a really, really difficult thing. And obviously because of, again, back to the liability factor, I think leagues just didn't think in August we would still be here with where we are from the coronavirus, like right. where it is within the country and cases and all that stuff.
I mean, nobody thought we were going to be here, but then our leadership from the top down gave no straightforward path direction for the entire country. So now we're here. Whereas if there was solid leadership and direction of what we should be doing, then there could have been a better possibility of, hey, you know what? We will have sports because we had this in place. I don't know about fans. Maybe we can do like 10%, but we will definitely, like, sports isn't a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. And like, I've seen a lot of people today talk about when we had the Spanish flu, right? And we ended up playing college football. I don't know if that was the right decision, but we definitely did it. It's interesting on the surface, right? It's interesting just to think we've went through the Spanish flu, World War II. What was the war in the 50s? The Korean War, Vietnam. We've had college football every year.
Can we also put this into context, though? Let's put that into context.
Yeah.
Spanish flu, 1920?
1919, yeah.
1919. What was Atlanta the biggest hub in the world for flights or people coming in internationally into airports and different airports, blah, 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 or planes being recirculated in different areas and having hundreds of different people on them before they become the chartered plane that is going to be used for a college sport or an NFL sport? So let's put it into context. Yes, college football was played, but what were they doing? They were essentially in a bubble for sports because you had to be on the bus. It's not like you could go 50 different thousand places. Not like Magic City was going to be open and places and those type of vices. We're talking about 1919. Horse and buggy was still out here, I think, somewhere. So let's put it into context. It's just the same way when I was going to go down that route, but I'm not going to go down that route. But if you put it in the contextual aspect of what happened then to what we do now, then you would say, okay, we play sports. You have to do it in a bubble. Can you put college sports in a bubble?
I actually thought they were, right? It feels like this is the year. I'm not saying we need to wipe away like the structure of the leagues that we have, but this year, especially because, you get Rutgers in the Big Ten, right? It's like, all right. Well, first off, we don't need Rutgers in the Big Ten, but this is the year.
I know. Keep going.
I
know.
I want to agree with you, but I can't agree with you. It's one of those where, like, this is the year to do geographical games, right? You have to just say, okay, we're going to group together Indiana, Ohio, like as a state, right? Because they're right next to each other, maybe Kentucky or something like that. Like, all right, you three states are going to, what others, like schools, right? Bowling Green, Kentucky, Ohio State, Ohio, Indiana, Notre Dame, like you guys are all going to play each other this year, right? So we're going to travel within like whatever, 300 miles or something like that, to your point, on buses and things like that. I feel like there's a way to do it. There's enough schools, there's enough ways to do it geographically. I don't know why they haven't thought of that. And it seems like, I don't know if you saw, to your point about leadership from the top down, someone asked Mark Emmert today, like, what are you doing right now? And he was like, well, it's up to the schools themselves. It's like,
right. That makes no sense. You're supposed to be the lead. You make the decisions at the final decision for players when they can transfer, but you can't do anything now. Doesn't make sense.
It makes zero sense.
Doesn't make sense at all.
What are you doing?
Yeah. But on top of all that, I say you can do the bubble, but if you do a bubble, then the charade is up. We all know what this is about. You're just trying to collect that financial money. And at that point, there is no discrepancy. There's nothing that you could say to justify not paying players. And that's all a bubble would entail, because every university saying, hey, yeah, we can go to virtual classes. But like Harvard said, it's still going to be $40K for you to take all your online classes. Doesn't make sense.
Sure.
But if you can do virtual classes for players, you can do a bubble in a sense where you have your all of your Big Ten schools or ACC schools within a certain radius, and they're off campus, they're in an athletic facility, but you can circulate through different types of states. That's why the SEC is built so perfectly, between going from UGA, Auburn, Tuscaloosa, right, Tennessee. You could make a structure. I mean, Missouri is the odd man out that they could do a bubble. Then geographically, you'd bring West Virginia.
They don't matter.
Yeah. I mean, Missouri sneaks into the SEC title game every other year somehow. But let's look at it for what was just announced too. Nebraska and Iowa were the two schools apparently in the vote that didn't want to cancel the season. Scott Frost comes out and says that he's willing to play an open non-conference schedule. So then what are we talking about? If that's the case, you might as well just play regular football. There's that you knew from the fact you knew there's nothing about we're being COVID regulated by just playing a conference schedule. If your head coach then comes out and say, yeah, well, we'll look at playing a non-conference schedule if we can do that. Then again, the charade is up.
Well, no, and he kind of gave it away today, right? He was like, we're going to lose $100 million. We're like, whoa. Thought this was about the kids. Thought this was about amateurism, right? Not about how much money the school is going to lose. We understand like everyone's losing money out here. It's a pandemic, right? So
now UConn ain't losing money. Shout out Huskies. I'm gonna drop my Huskies all day. I don't know why. I'm just gonna drop them.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? That, and to your point, I want to go back to the virtual classes, right? That was my other thought is you have it. You're bubbling, right? With these kids, you're doing classes virtually. So you have the tutors with them at all times, like all that type of stuff. Like it seems to me that there's a path. I'm not doing all the logistics, like obviously correctly in some way, I'm sure, but I'm sure there's a way to play geographically with the fact that you're going to do school online anyways. So,
yeah. And I literally thought the NFL would have been a leader, just like you said, do geographic games. I thought the NFL had a chance to do something really, really cool this year. And instead of having AFC, NFC, you could have taken the teams geographically. The hardest ones would have been in the middle. You're not taking the Cowboys out of Jerry World. But being able to lump games. So Northeast is going to play Northeast. Like you restructure the league so that it now makes sense geographically and you can travel by bus. I mean, more
money. Like they
have team yeah, they can fly private. They can do what they need. Like, I mean, obviously the Pats have legitimately their own plane. Like they're not having Delta set aside 777 to come in and then stay overnight. So yeah, NFL is different, but I still thought, for the safety of players, because you had 69 players still opt out, that you could have put something more in place, more structure in place to do that type of bubble. And it would have looked cool. Because now, you're playing, and your non-traditional rivalries, but because you're across the river or something like that, something new could spark up for the year. And you're like, oh, we see them once every 3 years, but now, we're going to see them 2 times a year this year. So this is going to be awesome. Right. But college football, it's hanging on by a thread. People got the hot takes, and it just annoys me because it's like, we all love sports. We all want to see sports, but they're not doing it. And they know for a fact kids aren't going to be protected. And then you have a lot of people saying, well, they're young, so it doesn't matter. They can get over it. Yeah, some kids can, some kids won't. So you want to jeopardize a kid that could be a pro athlete and say, hey, go out and play. You don't know what can happen to your body. And then you have kids that are, you have college athletes that are like, well, I saw a tweet where they're like, well, they make us, have head-on collisions, but now you want to act like you care about our health. Well, first off, you teach technique so that you don't have head-on collisions. That happens in the game by byproduct, and that's a controllable factor for the most part. You can't control anything about COVID. You don't know what COVID is. Yes, concussions happen. Concussions can have lingering, lasting effects with the more that you have. And there are dangers to the sport. And it's just different when you can literally die. I don't think we've had somebody die out on the field, knock on wood, don't want that to happen. But you've had young adults pass away from this virus. You don't know the lasting complications from the virus. So go ahead. If you want to take that chance, take the chance. But it seems if you have everything structured the right way and you're not going to take a kid's eligibility away, they can come back the next year, still be a sophomore, still be a junior. Why run the risk of having to sacrifice a year, an uncomfortable year, continue to train, get stronger, get your education, come back next year. Hopefully we have better things in place and then we can move forward. Everybody's acting like this is like all of a sudden this is Armageddon and there's an asteroid coming in 5 months. But if we don't get everything in, we're going to miss it. Like it's never coming back. That's what I was saying. Like it can come back. We just need to be
different though. It'll be different. I mean, I think that's the thing is like we're seeing how much players are needed, right, within the structure of what college sports are. And what I mean by that is like how, especially football players, like they make so much money, right? So they're such an integral part of what the college sports landscape is. And to your point, what you were just saying there about the true health risk, I think what no university president wants to have to answer to is what if a kid dies of COVID?
Exactly. You'll never be able to forgive yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing. It's like, there's no answer to that. I don't personally think there is. And because there's no answer to that, it's hard to see a way. It's just hard to see a path with that. Right. And I think that's where I am with everything, is like, until you have an answer for that. Okay. If someone's child goes to a Power 5 school, plays football, and dies because they get COVID, like, what is your response, and what do we do from there? Unless you have an answer for that, it's hard to see us playing. And again,